Last video we left off getting our header view controller up and running, looking nice. In this video, we're going to pause for a second and we're going to clean up this UserInfoVC a little bit. If you look back, remember here I have this sloppy view to load. I'm worried this is going to get too sloppy if we wait till the end. So we're gonna pause, clean this up, and do a little bit of more setup for our future child view controllers. So what we're going to do is we're going to refactor the view to load, and then we're going to create, like we did with our header view, like our container views, we're going to create the containers for the card views, the item view controllers, the GitHub item and the follower item. We're going to create those containers. So the overall structure of our UserInfoVC will be in place after this video. So with that being said, let's start creating those container views. That's the main thing we're going to do here. So let's item view 1 equal UI view, and let item view 2 equal UI view. Again, we're just doing more of the same like we did with the header view. So back down here, and this is, once we build these, then we'll refactor it here. So similar to what we did up here, view.add subview item view 1, view.add subview item view 2. And like I said, once we get this up and running, we're going to refactor this into basically what I'm going to do, a little sneak peek. So we're going to put these views into an array. That way we can loop through the array and do a lot of this repetitive setup using that array. But I want to type it out the long way first, so then the refactor will make more sense. So again, forgive the bit of repetitive code here for a little bit. It's only temporary. So item view 1.tamic, right, equals false. Item view 2.tamic equals false. And then now we want to lay out the constraints for the item view 1 and 2. So item view 1.topAnchor. So we're going to pin this to the bottom of the header view, right? That constraint, the header view container, I should say, is going to be equal to header view dot bottom anchor, and then the constant is going to be 20, but we're going to do what we've been typically doing here. Let padding of a CG float equal 20, and constant is padding. And then same thing with the leading and trailing. Oh, always forget my commas. Item view 1 dot leading anchor dot constraint equal to view dot leading anchor, again padding. Man, these commas killing me. Item view 1 dot trailing anchor dot constraint equal to view dot trailing, and then again negative padding, and then the height is going to be 140. Again, I've just kind of hard coded and figured out that height. Item view 1 dot height anchor dot constraint is equal to 140. And then we're going to copy and paste this for item view 2 because it is very, very similar. So now if we hold option and highlight that, and then if we type item view 2, top anchor isn't going to be equal to the bottom of the header view. It's going to be equal to bottom of the item view 1, right? Because we're just stacking these on top of each other, again with the 20 padding. And we have the leading and trailing. Like I said, you see a lot of this repeated stuff. This is where the for loop is going to come into play. And then the height is equal to 140. And I like to do this. Let item height CG float, just in case we ever want to, come in and tweak the height of our item. We can just quickly do it there. So item height, and then item height. So now real quick, in order to see this, we're going to have some temporary code here. Item view 1 dot background color equals dot system. Remember, our system pink is kind of our debug. Item view 2 dot background color equals dot. We'll do system blue for this one. So we just want to see our containers, right? We're gonna work on building those view controllers in later videos. That way, once we get them built, we don't have to do all this setup again. We just kind of plug them in. So like I said, we're doing some cleanup and setup in this video. So I want to run this real quick before we refactor, right? There's a lot of repeated, kind of sloppy code here, but let's run it to see if we got our, just the overall structure of our screen, right? That's what we're looking for. That's what we want to get set up. Kind of the foundation. So click on a follower. Cool. Again, we have our header view controller, and then you can see where our item view controllers are going to go, right? This is where the GitHub section is going to go. This is where the followers section is going to go, right? And we're just going to plug those in once we build those. So you can see the structure of our screen. That's what we wanted to get going. So now that that's up and running, let's stop this. Now it's time to, let's refactor this. Let's make this look better, right? This view to load is, it's a mess. I couldn't take it anymore. So let's start taking this out piece by piece, right? We have this view controller stuff here, right? So let's create a function called configure view controller. Func configure view controller. And we're going to yank this out here. So Command X to cut, Command V to paste. And there are shortcuts to refactor that they were new in Xcode 9 that you can like do that quicker. I don't know. I'm just in the habit of doing it that way. But there are other ways to refactor that Xcode has implemented. So now that we are, oh, I forgot my parentheses. Now that we're configuring the view controller, laying out the UI, here's where we have our network call now. So let's create the network call here. And like I said before, I like to have my layout UI kind of towards the bottom, just because I like to have the logic up front. So func get user info. And then cut out this network call here, paste it there, and then call it here, get user info. So you can see now our view to load, much neater. I like the two vertical spaces there. We've refactored that out. We have our network call separate. Again, we're still not done with this screen. This is kind of like the first pass of cleaning it up, but you can see it's becoming much nicer here. So now we want to take care of this layout UI function. A lot of repeated code here. So like I said, we're going to throw these views in. We're going to add another view later, like the date label view. So there'll be more added to this. And but we're going to put these into an array and do a lot of this stuff via a for loop that will kind of get rid of this repetitive code. So let's go up and create that array here, variable down here, var item views, and it is an array of UI view, and it's going to equal an empty array. And then you know what we got to do. So now that we have this empty item views array, we have to populate those views, and I'm going to do that here in layout UI. So item views equals, and it's going to be header view, comma, item view 1, item view 2. And then so now that we have this array, let's write our for loop. So for item view in item views, the array. And now we can do item or view.add subview item view. So it's going to iterate through all of these and add the subview. So that can get rid of this chunk of code. And you can see we're just going to kind of go line by line here and put it into a for loop. So you can see we're doing the translates auto resizing masking constraints for all these. So we can do that. Item view dot translates, yep, equals false. Cool. That gets rid of all this. This is temporary code. We're going to keep this in here for now, just for our debugging purposes, but that will get deleted later. Now you can also see we have some constraints we can move up in there as well, right? If you notice the leading and trailing, we're using negative padding and padding, right? But remember, we handled the header view. We have a little bit of an issue, right? We can't, like ideally I want to move this leading and trailing anchor into the for loop because they all have that same padding left and right. But if you remember, we talked about last video, we were handling the padding in the header view in actually the header view VC. So we removed it from here, but we're going to switch that back because if I handle it out here, now I can throw it into the for loop. Remember, it doesn't really matter where we handle it. So if I go into the UserInfoVC and instead of handling all this padding here that we're doing on all of these, if I just get rid of this constant in here and pin it to the edges here, so get rid of the constant padding here on the leading and trailing. Well, there's no trailing on the avatar. So username label, leading and trailing, well, text image padding, that's not it, right? We're only dealing with the outer edges of the header view, right? So username label dot trailing anchor, this is the one that goes all the way up to the edge of the screen. Let's get rid of the constant there. This way it'll go all the way to the edge of the child view controller, or the container view. Well, remember, we're going to push in the container view in our user info view here in a second. So all this trailing with padding we can get rid of because we want it to go all the way to the edge. Remember, not the text image padding. That's like the inner padding. We want the outside padding. So again here, get rid of that. And then bio label padding, get rid of that as well. So scroll up. Are we even using padding anymore? Yeah, we are using it right there. That's fine. We'll keep this still as a variable just in case, but we're only using it once. So now let's go back to our UserInfoVC. So now we can add the padding here like we did before. And remember, we took it away. Now we're adding it back. But that is because you'll see why. It's going to allow us to refactor a little bit more. So you can see that, you know, sometimes you can go back and forth as things develop while you're programming, and you know, sometimes you'll go back and you know, reverse things like we're doing here. So now you can see by doing that, by handling the padding out here on the container view rather within the child view controller, now we can refactor this little bit of constraints into our for loop, which will clean this up a bit. So sorry if that was a little bit confusing. Hopefully you followed along, but now we can do ns layout constraint.activate, and here we can do item view dot leading anchor. Well, actually, we'll cut, paste, and instead of header view, this will be item view. And we don't need the comma there. And now we can get rid of you here as well, and get rid of the leading and trailing here as well. Tighten this up a bit. Whoops. Nope, that was too much there. We don't need a comma there. Oh, and here we don't have the padding variable. So if we move these variables up to the top of the scope here, that way we'll have access to them. And clean up the spacing down here. And that cleaned that up a little bit there. So now we only have to deal with like the top and the height, top and the height, top and the height, because those are going to be different. But you can see we're doing a lot of the repetitive stuff in here. And this is gonna, when we add our date label, like it's gonna have the same leading and trailing padding. So it'll just go right in the for loop and automatically work. So let's run this and see what we got here. Make sure everything is still looking good. We still have our pink and blue squares there. Get followers, click on a follower. There we go. Things are still looking good. Our header view didn't get messed up. Let's pick somebody who actually has like a decently long bio so we can see. Cool, that all works up. Everything's lined up nicely. Still good to go. We didn't mess anything up. Looking good. And like I said, we cleaned up our view did load here. Looking nice and neat. Refactored it out into this configure view controller. Refactored out our network call. We refactored out our layout UI, because again, we're going to be adding to this when we add our date label, and you'll see how it kind of fits in nicely. So we cleaned up a bit. Again, we're absolutely not done with our UserInfoVC, but like I said, we cleaned up the workspace a little bit, and we got the overall structure of the screen done and ready to go for future videos. So we're actually just going to inject our child view controllers into that pink and blue square, and all the structures set up. So on to the next video when we're actually going to start creating those item info view controllers. So let's do it.